Alhamdulillah. So I just like to repeat again, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to everyone. It's really nice to be back with you guys. Um, yeah, we are going to be doing Surah Tur bi'idhnillah ta'ala. So what we're going to do is, you guys are going to, this is going to be your classroom basically for the entire period from now until 12:30, right? So I'm going to have you for a period up until about maybe 10 to 10 to 10. Thereafter, Mullah Muhammad will join this meeting. You guys don't have to go anywhere, right? Mullah Muhammad will join this meeting, and he'll take over from me. Thereafter, Mullah Khalil will give a nasiha. And after that, I think Mullah Khalil will take over after the break. We'll have a bit of a break and we'll see what we can do in that break, if we can speak to each other, etc. Uh, people put on the videos, etc. Um, and that's how we will try and run this class for today, bi'idhnillah ta'ala. Um, like I said, no hesitating to ask questions or to participate, inshallah. Like I said as well, al-ilmu bayna ithnain, and the other part of ilm is also that two people don't learn, the one that's too shy to ask and the one that's too arrogant to ask. So, as our ulama would also say, that the question is half of knowledge. The question is half of knowledge. So please don't hesitate to ask your questions. It's very, very important and I think beneficial to everyone. That you can ask via the chat if you want as well. If you're too shy to ask verbally. And just to acknowledge, I have been getting people's messages. Jazakumullah khairan for your feedback. Um, it, uh, it makes it feel like a class, alhamdulillah. So what we're going to be doing in this class is we are continuing with Quran bi'idhnillah ta'ala. Mawlana Khalil assigned to us Surah Tur bi'idhnillah ta'ala. Surah Tur is in the 27th juz of the Quran. Um, and it's the first surah that actually begins in that juz. Now, I'm not actually sitting with your mushaf, so I'm not sure what page it's on. So if somebody can maybe just put that in the comments for everybody else, then we can start bi'idhnillah ta'ala. So what I'm going to do is, as usual, so it's page number 734. Jazakillah. What I'm going to do is, as we usually do, a little bit of an introduction to the surah, and then we'll get into the meanings of the verses bi'idhnillah ta'ala. The name of this surah is Surah Tur, as you would have seen it. At-Tur means it's the name of a specific mountain, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used it elsewhere in the Quran, At-Turi Sayna, the Mount of Sinai, right? There's also another meaning that this word Tur can have, and that's just in general a big mountain. However, when a word has al at the beginning, then it's definite, right? And when a word is definite, it usually implies that we understand which mountain is being spoken about. And so, the Mufassirin generally say that the word Tur refers to that specific mountain, which is called Mount Sinai. I just got a comment here, Salam. I have no sound, video has stopped. Can I just get a thumbs up if everybody else is still fine? I think that may be a problem on Auntie's side.
I'm still good here on my side, Maulana.
Okay, good. Alhamdulillah. Right. So the name of the if anybody has a problem with the sound and audio not working, I think maybe the person can just for ease of troubleshooting, because I can't obviously help people individually with that now. That's gonna really break the flow of things. So what I think the people can do is just leave the meeting and then come into the meeting again, inshallah. Hopefully that will sort out the problem. Right? So The name of the surah is Surah Tur. It also goes by the name Surah Wat-Tur, right? That's just a different naming convention. So sometimes when the surah get their names, they get their names just from a quotation of the beginning of the surah, right? And then we say surah that. Or when there is something salient mentioned in the surah, then the surah gets its name from that. Um, for example, if we take Surah Al-Baqarah, the name of the surah is not Baqarah because the surah is about a cow, but there's a salient passage in that surah that kind of highlights some of the themes of that surah, wherein Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the cow, and that's why the surah gets the name Surah Al-Baqarah. So some say that the name of the surah is Surah Tur because of that. That's that salient mention of a tur in the surah. And others call it Wat Tur or Surah Wat Tur because of a naming convention where they say surah get the names of the beginning portion of that surah. Like we would say for Qul Huwa Allahu Ahad. You can call it Suratul Ahad, or you can just call it Surah Qul Huwa Allahu Ahad. I hope that's understood. Thereafter, in terms of some of the virtues of the surah, one, um, or at least the most commonly mentioned virtue of the surah, is that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would recite this surah in Maghrib Salah. Um, so don't shoot me, right? You may think, Subhanallah, this is a long surah. I'm not going to recite Surah Tur in Maghrib, but just so that we get an idea of what their lives were like, um, and also the importance of the surah. I'm mentioning that one Sahabi by the name of Jubair ibn Mut'im, he says that he heard Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam reciting Surah Tur in Maghrib Salah. Um, why the specific virtue to that? Allahu A'lam. It's just what we have recorded from the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Thereafter, the surah is a Meccan surah, right? There's a consensus that this is a Meccan surah. Now, you would know by now that the Meccan surah have themes that contrast with the Madanine surah, the surah that were revealed. And when I say Meccan, I mean revealed before Hijrah. When I say Madanine, I refer to what was revealed after the Hijrah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to Medina. The themes were not slightly, the themes were different. The focus of the ayat were very different. Continuing the same message, a very coherent message, but it took on a different hue in the Madanine period. In the Meccan period, what was the message about? We know already the 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 message was very strongly one of belief in the unseen, belief in the next life. In fact, many people, you may not have come across this, but the people in Mecca, the polytheists, the mushrikeen in Mecca, they used to believe in Allah. The mushrikeen in Mecca, they knew that Allah was the creator of everything. They knew that. They believed that. That was part of the belief. Yes, they did have a problem in that in worship, they would ascribe partners to Allah. They would have all the idols, Lat, Manat, Uzza, all of those things. But they didn't believe that those things created the universe. They didn't believe that those things created them. Perhaps they had beliefs like these idols are our intermediaries to Allah. For example, instead of asking Allah for rizq, I'm going to ask the idol for rizq. But they still believed that Allah is the God supreme. Allah is the creator of everything. Allah is the source of everything. They did believe that. But in addition to that, they had um, set up these idols and they had incorrect beliefs. But there's one specific belief that they had big problems with. One specific belief that they had big problems with. And that is the belief in the year after. The belief in Jannah and Jahannam. And that's why you will find in the Quran oftentimes when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about belief in Him, right, then He speaks about having Iman. He speaks about having Iman. Um, and you know that word Iman from the fourth Bab means to believe something. But when he speaks about belief in the year after, or when he speaks about in life after this life, or when he speaks about Jannah and Jahannam, then he speaks oftentimes about yaqeen. Not Iman, but yaqeen. So the scholars have said, what's the difference between Iman and yaqeen? Iman is to believe. It's not to believe half-heartedly, it's to believe completely. And then we have yaqeen. Yaqeen is conviction, certainty. And they sound like very similar things. If I have belief, complete belief in something, then what's the difference between that and me having certainty in something or having yaqeen in something? So the scholars say that specifically Ibn Ashur, rahimahullah ta'ala, great mufassir, um, he says that the difference between yaqeen and iman is that you have iman in things that don't require you to look into them. They are known obviously. Right? So, for example, you would say that a God exists is something that is innately known by human beings. Human beings, they just know it. However, that there's a Jannah and Jahannam, they don't necessarily know. That doesn't have to exist. People could believe that, yes, Allah created us, God created us, but there's not going to be anything after this life. The only way we come to know about Jannah and Jahannam is through the revelation of the messengers. That's the only way that we come to know about it. There's no way you could have just been born and known that I'm going to Jannah or such a place like Jannah exists or Jahannam. Right? We require the messengers for that. Now, so there's two different types of things that we have here. Knowledge that is known innately or obviously, and knowledge that is only known via looking into it or via revelation. So they say, in knowledge that is known innately and obviously, that you have iman in. In knowledge that is known or that requires nazar, that requires either you to think about or it requires external knowledge, that type of information you can have yaqeen in, certainty. Now you may think, hey, is belief in Allah obvious? We then have so many atheists in our time. There's people that don't believe in a God. So yeah, I'd like to say that many serious philosophers believe that there's no such thing as a true atheist. Most atheists you will find, it's not that they have a continuous thread throughout their life where they don't believe in a God. Rather, there comes a point in time where they convince themselves that there's no God. But the original state is that they had an intrinsic or almost like an automatic disposition to know God. They had an automatic disposition to know Allah, to know God. Um, and so here we can actually see, despite the fact that we have people that disbelieve in Allah or that believe that Allah doesn't exist, na'udhu billahi min dhalik, there is still a difference between that type of knowledge or knowledge about Allah and knowledge about Jannah and Jahannam. Why I'm going into all of this roundabout stuff is because, that's the reason why the Meccan surah focus very much on Jannah and Jahannam. They focus on life after this life. They don't focus so much on proving that Allah exists. It's almost taken as a given that Allah exists. Allah speaks about His qualities. He speaks about His oneness. Right? But not so much proving that He exists. It's taken as a given that He exists. But He spends a lot of time speaking about the end of this life. He speaks about the end of our own lives and the end of life as we know it. And He also speaks about what exists in that life, What are the outcomes of people there? And that's very, very important to understand. Right? Why is it important to understand? It's important to understand because it has a profound impact on our lives. It has a profound impact on our lives. Right? What impact is that? What impact is that? That impact is that whenever we decide to do something, any action, as a human being, whenever you decide to do an action, there is a thought process that happens. You have some kind of motivation. You may think, no, man, Zakariyya is making things complicated here. Oftentimes, I just do things. But the reality is, either you've already convinced yourself that that's a wise thing to do or a beneficial thing to do, or you actually have some process running in your mind that tells you you have some values or some things that you think are beneficial that tells you that it's better for me to do this action than for me to not do the action. You have it running, even if it's subconsciously. And what, you know, philosophers and thinkers, both Muslim and non-Muslim, have agreed upon is that people are motivated to do things by what benefits them. People are motivated to do things by seeing that as a means to attain what benefits them. What do we mean what benefits them? There's various types of benefit that exist. You can benefit yourself in terms of, having a better standard of living. You can benefit yourself in terms of pleasure. You can benefit yourself in terms of, spiritual pleasures, bodily pleasures, whatever it may be. So what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us in Jannah and Jahannam is like the greatest potential harm in Jahannam, and in Jannah, the greatest potential pleasures that one can possibly attain. Isn't that why Rasulullah says in the hadith? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says in the hadith, أعددت لعبادي. It's actually a hadith Qudsi, right? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is narrating from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he says, أعددت لعبادي. I have prepared for my slaves ما لا عين رأت, what no eye has ever seen, ولا أذن سمعت, what no ear has ever heard, ولا خطر على قلب بشر, nor has it ever crossed the mind of any human being. So what do we understand from that? That if you think of the greatest possible pleasure that you can think of, then Jannah is actually greater than that, or the pleasures of Jannah is actually greater than that, much better than that. And so that's why I say, in Jannah, Allah has given us the greatest potential pleasure that we can ever think of. So how does that impact us? When we consider doing an action, and we're considering what benefits us, if we believe and if we are convinced in the existence of Jannah and Jahannam, then naturally we will prefer doing what gives us Jannah, because there's no better pleasure than Jannah. So we'll never do anything that will bring us some small pleasure but will cause us to lose out on Jannah. Rather, we'll lose out on the smaller pleasure to ensure that we attain the greater pleasure that is Jannah. I hope that's understood. I see somebody ask, how do you raise your hand? If if you're not coming right with raising your hand, just say that, just type hand up, and then I will acknowledge you. So if you'd like to speak, see X646790. Ask the question. If you'd like to say something, you can just unmute yourself and then speak. Bismillah.
Assalamualaikum Maulana and everybody.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Maulana, I missed the part, so I just want to just clarify again. So which one is the difference between Iman and Yaqeen? So is Iman when the knowledge is known and yaqeen when the knowledge is unknown? Or am I misunderstanding?
Okay. Iman is when the knowledge is obvious. You know it innately. You don't need a proof. Right? And yaqeen is for knowledge for which you require a proof, or knowledge that you require. You can't just conclude it on your own. You have to have some external type of information, like from revelation, or you have to do some kind of experimentation or something like that. Right? It's not an exclusive distinction. It's not that Iman never gets used for Jannah. No, Iman can encompass uh, matters of yaqeen as well, but there is a difference between the two. And the difference is what I mentioned. It's not what is known and what is unknown. Iman is for what is known obviously, it doesn't require proof. And yaqeen is for knowledge that for which you require external information or a proof. Right? So in that Meccan period, Allah focused on these matters of yaqeen. Allah focused greatly on these matters of yaqeen, specifically on Jannah and Jahannam because of the impact that it has on our action, as I just mentioned now, right? That impact being that it gives us the greatest potential benefit and the greatest potential harm. So in our rational minds, when we are considering which action to undertake, one that is pleasing to Allah or one that is not pleasing to Allah, we would always have, or we should always have the motivation to choose the one that pleases Allah because it is the greatest potential, or it leads to the greatest potential benefit that we can attain. And we would never choose the one that displeases Allah because it leads to, even though it may bring me some pleasure in this world, it's going to lead to the greatest potential harm in the long run. For example, somebody drinks some alcohol. I don't know if there's any pleasure in it, but those people that drink seem to have gone mad when uh, when the president permitted them to purchase alcohol. So I'm assuming there's some kind of pleasure that they get from it. Um, that said, that pleasure is short-lived and temporary, whereas the price that one pays for engaging in such an action is that they potentially put their akhirah or their entry into Jannah at risk. Right? And so when a person is thinking rationally, they would never make that choice. They would never make that choice unless they're not convinced of Jannah and Jahannam. It's not a reality before them. Right. Um, that's one level of things. There's another aspect to this discussion, but I'm gonna leave it at that for now because I want to get into the surah. Right. So what does this surah entail? Surah Tur. This surah is very typical of a Meccan surah in that regard. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks very emphatically and very descriptively about the end of time, about Jahannam, and about Jannah. In fact, for me, in this surah, there's one of the most like terrifying verses uh, like in the Quran. And we'll see that shortly within Allah. But Allah speaks uh, very vividly and very emphatically about the end of times, Jannah and Jahannam. Thereafter, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes into matters of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes into matters of other matters of belief, like removing some uh, removing some doubts or claims that were made against Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a consolation for him. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes on to speak about some, you know, in fact, in the surah is one of the most salient or clear rational proofs for belief in the Quran. So we'll get into that when we get there, bi'idhnillah ta'ala. But now into the surah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the especially merciful. I don't have to do i'rab or translation of that. We've been through that many times. First, or after the basmalah, the first verse in the surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Wattur. Wattur. What does that mean? You can see there that the word tur is in is in raf. Is that correct? You can give me a thumbs up if you want to. There's the reactions button. If you want to give a quick reaction, you can just put a thumbs up, whatever, uh, just to increase the participation. All right, it's in jar. But now if it's in jar, there has to be a reason. Words are normally in jar. If I have a word on its own, it should be in araf. If it's at the beginning of a sentence, it should be in araf. Why is this word here in jar? It's in jar because of the wow that comes before. Now you know a number of types of wow. What types of wow do you know? There we go. I see it in the comments. It's wawul, okay, but that comment was made only to me. It's wawul qasam. Wawul qasam. What is the purpose of wawul qasam? Wawul qasam, or any qasam for that matter in the Arabic language, is oftentimes used when you just want to emphasize something. And we know in Cape Town, so one is when you want to assert the truth of something, or when you want to give somebody confidence that you will do something in the future. Right? So you tell them, wallahi, I will do that. But there's also a time, so that's not really for emphasis. When you're speaking about doing something in the future, that's more to give the person, to convince the person, or a form of taking an oath that you will fulfill something in the future. However, another usage of the qasam in the Arabic language is when you want to, emphatically assert something. You want to emphasize something. And we know this in Cape Town. That happened. Billahi. Sumba. Billahi is in the Quran. Whatever. Right? So that is a feature of the Arabic language as well. And so here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing that. He's taking a qasam, not not to necessarily say that he will do something, but to emphasize something and to assert the truth of something. He says what? Watur, by atur. Now, another thing that we know is that when Allah takes a qasam by something, then that thing has to be an important thing. Right? And I always mention this. If I must take a qasam and I say, I swear by a grain of sand, my qasam doesn't, it only emphasizes it as much as what I'm taking the oath by. Nobody values the grain of sand. So to break a promise taken by a grain of sand is it's a very light thing. It's not of much consequence. So when Allah takes a qasam, number one, we know that Allah is going to say something important. Another thing that we know is that the thing that Allah is taking the qasam by is something that's important as well. Right? So what is the importance of at-tur? And yeah, I'm going to the meaning at-tur as in the Mount Tur. But the reality is, at the beginning of Surah Tur, there's a number of alternate understandings of these words. وَالطُّورِ وَكِتَابٍ مَسْطُورٍ فِي رَقٍّ مَنْشُورٍ وَالْبَيْتِ الْمَعْمُورِ وَالسَّقْفِ الْمَرْفُوعِ وَالْبَحْرِ الْمَسْجُورِ. There's alternate tafasir for them. Right? But I'm going to go with the most commonly mentioned one, and that is At-Tur refers to the Mount Tur. Now, what do we know about this Mount Tur? A number of things. We know that this mountain had significance in the life of Musa alayhi salam. Right? Great significance in the life of Musa alayhi salam. One aspect of that, or one very clear aspect of that significance, is that he received revelation there. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking an oath not just by a mountain, but by a mountain where revelation descended. Right? And that may be unclear when you read it superficially. But when you think about what Tur is, not what Tur, when you think about what At-Tur is, then you think about Musa alayhi salam and revelation. And that's something that is extremely important in the Madinan context. Because this is what prophethood is about. This is what sending messages is about. This is what gives you yaqeen. The fact that you receive revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you get this special divine external source of knowledge, that is what gives you yaqeen. And so, yes, Allah has taken an oath by Tur, but we also want to see the deeper meaning of that. Right? We want to see the deeper meaning of that. Allah is taking an oath by the place at which revelation occurred. And then he goes on, وَكِتَابٍ مَسْطُورٍ, and a book that is mastur. Now, I see our time is up. We had a bit of teething problems. Maulana Muhammad, Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Is this an open class? Maulana, if you hear Maulana, then obviously it's an open class. I'm going to hand over now in a moment. Just to conclude, وَكِتَابٍ مَسْطُورٍ, kitabin means a book. Masturin is the sifa for that word kitabin. A satr is a line. Kitabin mastur will refer to a book arranged in lines. Right? And one of the tafasir for this is that it refers to the Torah. But we'll get into that next week, inshallah. Please forgive me, we did have some teething problems at the beginning of this class, some technical problems, but I think inshallah next week, everybody knows the protocol, knows the drill. We can jump straight into class, normal teaching next week, inshallah. What I'm going to do now is, I'm going to hand over to Maulana Muhammad, inshallah.